He's David Reiss, the author and professor at Brooklyn Law School. Also still with me is Peter Cook, who'd been following that hearing all day yesterday. And David, I want to start off with some of the statements that were made throughout the hearings,
Sure.
kind of the themes that you heard throughout. One of them was generally that, look, nobody else foresaw the housing crisis, so why blame Moody's specifically?
Well, I think that's the wrong standard. I think it's kind of a little bit of a bait and switch. The rating agencies have a special role in all of this, and they're supposed to really plan for worst-case scenarios. So to say they didn't see it, that's not good enough.
The other one was like mistakes were made. There was a lot of admitting about that from McDaniel and as well as from Warren Buffett, but there wasn't anything close to fraud.
I think that that's probably true. But again, is that the right standard? I mean, when you go to any professional, you go to your lawyer or your accountant or your doctor, and they say, you're in really bad shape right now, but I didn't commit fraud. I don't know how good you'll feel about that.
David, what's the alternative, though? Because we heard Warren Buffett say, listen, this isn't a perfect business model, but I haven't come up with a better alternative. And I'm up in D.C. There are a lot of members of Congress who haven't come up with a better one as well. What's your idea?
Well, my sense is that the rating agencies have become too enmeshed in the business of Wall Street. So you need a rating to have an issuance of a mortgage-backed security, an asset-backed security. You need a rating if you're buying things for a money market fund. And it's created a laziness, I think, in the raters because they have this privileged regulatory status. I think we need to start rolling that back and making the rating agencies rely more on the actual accuracy of their ratings.
You mean the laziness among those people who depend on the ratings, or you mean laziness among Moody's and S&P and Fitch?
Well, I think both of those things are true, but I was talking about it in the context of S&P and Fitch. If you had a business that said people have to come to you no matter what you do, whether it's lousy or good, you're probably going to tend toward lousy and put fewer resources into it.
You're talking about a major change right now, and there is a proposal in the Senate bill right now to essentially remove that government seal of approval, remove the requirement that you have rated securities, for example, at institutions. You're talking about a major change for the financial system. Could it cause more harm than good?
I think there could be some risk of that, and we need to implement it carefully, and I'd also implement it slowly, perhaps sector by sector, to kind of see how it goes. It's not a panacea because instead of having rating agencies do due diligence for all of these financial services companies, they're going to have to start doing their own due diligence.
Some of them can't afford it.
Some can't afford it, but maybe some shaking out isn't a bad thing, or some will purchase ratings that don't have the regulatory stamp of approval, but are hopefully accurate, right?
But even Buffett himself, and obviously an extremely smart guy, seemed to say that there isn't really a great solution. There isn't a great alternative to this system. If there was one, then we would have already started it.
I don't know. I mean, that seems like you could say that at the end of any crisis. Before we had the current system, we had the system where Moody's and S&P just sold their opinions like newspaper editorialists, and then slowly, starting in the 70s, we started incorporating ratings into regulation. And that's really changed the business and changed our reliance on ratings dramatically. There is another model. It just didn't pay as well.
One of the whistleblowers, Eric Kolchinsky, who testified yesterday, you happen to go to law school with him. Does that make his testimony all that more believable to you?
It certainly does to me. He was a solid guy, a smart guy, stand-up guy in law school, so I value what he has to say.
And he's got nothing to lose at this point.
Yes.
Other than telling the truth. All right. Okay, David, thanks so much for joining us.